quilters, welcome to week 6 of our framed pinwheels quilt along. We are using this pattern, framed pinwheels by Missouri Star Quilt Company. This is my favorite Missouri Star Quilt Company pattern. And this week we have our 9 patches that we made from last week. And this quilt pattern is a disappearing 9-patch pattern, and we have some blocks in some of the corners that are not going to get cut up. So for this week, we're going to cut this block up and rearrange it and sew it into our new blocks. So we've got our 9-patch here, one of the 9 patches from last week. And let's go to cut it up. So the first thing we need to do is a little math. These blocks, each piece of this 9-patch started out as a 5-inch block, or a 5-inch piece. So if this piece in the middle, where we're going to cut, is 5 inches, we need to account for our seam allowance. So let's take off a 1/2 inch. So that gives us 4.5 inches. And we need to divide that in half to decide where we want to make our cut. And for this particular block, 4.5 divided by 2 is 2.25. So we're going to line the 2.25 inch line on our ruler up with these lines. So a good tip that I have for cutting these up is arrange your cutting mat so that it is close to the corner of your table. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to cut this side, and I'm not going to move anything, because if I move anything, then I'll probably not line it up so great. Then I'm going to move over here, come around, and cut the other side. So let's do that. I'm going to take my 2.5 inch line on my ruler and line it up with this long seam line here. You want to make sure your block is nice and pressed first. It will give you better cuts, more accurate cuts if it is nice and flat. I'm using my 16.5 inch square ruler here, but any ruler that is longer than the block and at least 2.25 inches wide, it will work. We're going to take that 2.25 inch line on a ruler and line it up with this row of seams here. All right, so now that that's lined up, hold firm pressure. We're going to cut in half. All right, now I'm going to leave that exactly where it is and come around to this other side here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up my 2.25 inch line on this long line of those seams. And there we go. So now that we've made our cut, the next thing we're going to do is rearrange those pieces. And we'll sew the block back together. When we rearrange these pieces, we are going to keep the pinwheels exactly where they are. And we're going to take those outside pieces and just turn them. We'll just turn them so that this quarter, that quarter from the center square is on the outside. And we'll do the same thing on this piece. So we kept our pinwheels where they were and just flipped these 2 pieces. Okay, so now that we have our pieces cut and rearranged, we're going to start sewing our new block together, and we will sew the rows together, and we'll press. I like to press towards this side, the side with the pinwheels on it. So let's sew our rows together. So now that these 2 pieces are sewn together, we can sew the 2 rows together. And you can see here I did press these towards the pinwheel quadrants, and I did chain piece this and leave them sewn together like that. So we can fold this over and we will be able to easily nest this seam and sew our 2 rows together. I'm going to be honest, you can really just press those however you want. For this seam, it's kind of impossible to make it so that every time when you sew your blocks together, that your blocks will always have every seam pressed towards the dark side and able to nest with the other blocks. So I would just press it however you want to, and then twist your seams if you need to. Twisted seams don't bother me. Now, if you have a long armer who says that they do bother her, then of course mind what that person says. But I just press this cross-section seam open. If pressing the seam open bothers you as far as you think it's not as secure of a seam, then you can always do a few back stitches at the very end, and that will secure that seam for you. But really, press that one however you want to, and with any pressing, press it however you want to. So now we have our blocks done. This is what a block is going to look like. We're going to work on our blocks this week, and next week we'll start sewing the quilt top together and adding our borders.